absent Counsel Kano.
Present.
Present Counsel Capano, absent Counsel Calucci, absent Counsel Creighton, absent Counsel Seer. Present Counsel Ford, absent Counsel Lozey. Present Counsel Net. Present Counsel Phelan. Present Counsel Trahan. Present.
This is a committee of the whole meeting, which is in theory a subcommittee meeting of the entire council. I did have contact from Councilor Barton today and Councilor Ford, who have met with a number of department heads already and are continuing to do so to go over the budget. They're unable to be here tonight. So with that, if we could have a representative of the police department, Chief Carpenter.
And that's on page 40.
Floor is yours, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present this budget to you. Our fiscal year 14 budget totals $19,513,408. That is slightly over $214,000 reduced from what we originally submitted. As you know, most budgets are heavy in payroll, which is true of our budget. Though that $214,000 was taken out of the expense side of the budget. The largest line item there was $150,000 taken out of cruisers, with another $50,000 taken out of office equipment, and then miscellaneous line items were cut on top of that. Other than that, I anticipate we should be able to get through the fiscal year fine. Cruisers are always an item that we worry about. One thing that we have seen in the past is in the recent past is a reduction in vehicles coming through the courts, through asset forfeitures, through drug cases, simply because of the Amy Dugan case with the state crime lab controversy. Everything's on hold, so we may be down the road be suffering from some of us, especially our unmarked cars, but we'll do the best we can with what we have. So, thank you.
Any questions for the Chief? Councilor Cahill.
Chief, how you doing?
Not bad, Council, and yourself.
Not bad. So, I can't remember, but over the last, say, 4 years, we'll use time span of 4 years. How is your budget, how will that time span going? Has the arrow gone down, has the arrow gone up, or has it been mountains?
About 4 years ago, we were coming off a major reduction. I don't have the number right in front of me here, but it was over $1 million. We've been slowly building back up. A lot of that was we can attribute to federal grants. 4 years ago, we received a grant from the COPS office in DC for just shy of $2 million. That expired last year. This will be the first fiscal year we don't have that. But we were lucky enough to secure a new grant for $900,000, which will take us to the next 3 to 4 years, depending on when it starts. And that's allowing us to keep enough police officers on the street to keep adequate levels. So we have this budget in front of you now. We have 188 officers, line items. We're going to try to put in 5 more into the academy next fiscal year, which will be funded with grant money. So we'll bring our total up if we get everybody hired to 193, which is headed in the right direction. As I said before, as my predecessors, if we'd ever get to 225 police officers, I think we could do some great things. But 193 is good for this, considering the economy.
Do you expect any attrition this year due to retirements? Or?
The gentleman to my right may retire sometime in the next year. He's talking about it, and we have a lieutenant who's going to retire on the 1st of July, and another lieutenant's going to retire next February.
Okay. So no massive attrition.
No, but I'm glad you brought that up, because if you go back in history, when President Clinton was organizing the COPS office, the city was recipient of a lot of heavy grant money. We were hiring classes of 25 officers at a time, or 15 officers, but they were double digits. Those officers over the next 5 to 10 years will be reaching their 32-year mark of service. And we're going to see those mass transitions. I know I've had a conversation with Chief McDonald from the fire department. They've recently gone through that. They're a little bit ahead of us, the age-wise. We're going to be doing the same thing coming up probably over the next 5 to 10 years.
This is my final question. I know you probably keep communication with other chiefs from around the area. How's Lynn stacking up this year financially for the police department as opposed to some of our neighboring surrounding communities that may be of like size? Or
I believe we're holding our own. Like anything, I think we're in the middle. I know some departments have seen, significant increases, 3, 4, one department got like a 6% increase in their budget, and other ones have been cut. So I think we're right in the middle there.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Net.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief here for yourself, Council. I know I would like to see 225 police officers be hired to our department. I know it's a big city and we need a lot of bodies to protect us. And if we really happen to reach that amount, so how much more budget do you think would be suitable for 225 police officers?
If you figure that's roughly another 20 officers, starting pay roughly about between $50,000 and $60,000 per officer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Long.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Donovan, Mr. Donovan, Inspectional Services.
It's page 30.
Good evening, councilors and council president. The inspectional services budget this year is $13,694,860, down from last year's $14,191,565 by $496,000. These cuts represent a 3.5% decrease that was requested of the department, and they have not impacted personnel, and they were taken out of expenses. The largest cut was taken from the streetlight budget, and that was a cut where the loan payment when we purchased the streetlights has expired. So the money was no longer needed to pay the loan, so we made a cut rather than try to make some improvements with some traffic signals. We took a large cut there. The other reduction was taken in on the expense side through minor cuts in a number of different line items. Also represented some in the HVAC supply line where we have made major improvements in the past 3 or 4 years and are about to embark upon a energy efficiency program this summer to replace boilers in 4 different schools. On the positive side, we will be increasing the inspectional side with the position of a sanitarian, which is a health inspector. The first we had interviews, and we anticipate being able to hire somebody for July 1. And we'll be increasing our inspectional staff by 1/2 FTE, both in the plumbing and electrical side, due to the increase in volume of permits. I'm more than happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's never easy to have a decrease in your budget. You did say that you're going to be taking it out of the maintenance, the lights. I'm sorry, could you explain that a little more? How we're not going to lose any kind of service on that?
No, sir. The street lights were purchased by the city back in 2009, and they were paid. The loan payment was paid for through the electrical savings and the savings that we used to pay the grid. That was a 3-year note. The loan was paid off last year, the last payment. So it was a $462,000 a year payment, which is no longer needed now. The intent was, if times were good, to keep that money and make some improvements in the traffic signals. We didn't give all of it back, but we gave back almost $300,000 of it back as part of the cut. So retaining still $100,000 so we can further maintain and make some improvements. This summer we're looking to go out and replace a lot of the traffic loops in the city due to various street construction. The traffic loops are serious. You can tell when you sit at the light too long. The loops aren't working, so we'll be doing a number of loops in intersections.
Okay. Also, school improvements, classical, our bond, various improvements around the city there in that regard. Could you give us a brief overview of what you intend on doing?
Yes. This year, we're looking at spending probably about between $1.2 and $1.6 million making improvements in various city buildings, mainly the schools. The largest project that we have going would be the Bennett Street building, which is about $1.2 million, which has been split over 2 fiscal years. They're working on it now, partly from this year and partly from next year's. We'll be going into the Cobbett School, repairing all the windows, glazing, window balances, and painting the entire school. Tracy School will have all its windows repaired and painted the same as Cobbett. The Ford School, we have bids coming in tomorrow to replace the flooring, the tile flooring on the first floor and the stairwells, as well as redoing the bathrooms on the first floor. It's a multi-phase project. Next year we look at doing the second and third floors. We would have done more at Ford this year, but the Bennett Street project is really swallowing up an awful lot of funding. We're looking to continue doing some work in the fire stations this year. We replaced some flooring and masonry repairs. We have some work to do at the Hollingsworth station in regards to the apparatus bay. But by and large, the major, putting aside the energy efficiency program, the major project will be the Bennett Street project.
And just the last question regarding the Lynn Tech, the roof, and you know, my interest in bringing solar, a solar array on the new roof. Have we made any progress on that?
Yes, the roof is underway, and it'll be another month before they're done. We had a draft of a study that was done on what that capacity the roof has for photovoltaics. And essentially what the study said was that we could put photovoltaics in the main building and it would generate enough electricity to power about half of the needs of the building. So 50% of the electrical needs of that building could be taken care of. I've contacted a separate consultant and I received a proposal yesterday to look at not designing it, but whether it'd be better off for us to borrow and to own it ourselves, or go through a PPA and have somebody else own it, and we buy the electricity. Because my understanding, and I'm not an expert here, but it's about $2.3 million to build this array. The SREX, I'm learning a new lingo here, but the SREX, it goes up and down, and if you're really not into the market, owning it may not be the best thing for the city, because once a year we're going to go out and try and negotiate things. Versus, I'm told, right now, between 7 and 9 cents a kilowatt hour, you can, with the PPA, you can purchase the electricity. We're paying a little over 14 cents a kilowatt hour right now. So you would see a substantial decrease in the electrical cost for the tech school.
If we did that, could I get a copy of that study, Mike, when you get a chance?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Capano.
Yes, thanks, Mike, for coming. Just looking at this, if I'm reading this right, the overtime budget is like less than half from last year, and a couple of years ago it was 5 times higher than it is, you know, the requested amount for this year. So, you know, and it was my hope that you'd be able to do some things on the weekend. You know, it's always helpful Saturday and Sunday. You know, a couple of years ago, you guys went around on Saturday and really took care of a lot of problems. Well, some things, you know, need to be done on the weekend. I just didn't know how, that to me that looks like a dramatic cut, but maybe not. Maybe this is a way to compensate for that, or maybe
Well,
reasons.
the overtime budget was cut because we put a full-time health inspector on. We lost the health inspector 2 budget cycles ago, and we didn't replace him, but we did increase the overtime. We also had to use additional overtime because the half electrical and half plumbing inspectors were lost back in '09. So essentially, if you look at the salary for the sanitarian and the 2 part-time inspectors, because I was faced with a cut with no layoffs, the only way I could really try to be creative to fund more inspectors during the week was to reduce the overtime. There's enough here to handle the emergencies that we have. We have building inspectors on call 24/7. So if there's an issue, I can have somebody on the street, and this funding should take care of it. Now, if I have the ability to continue the NEAT program, as we called it, which was helpful on the weekends, we're not doing it this particular spring because the way things worked out last year with some overtime on the clinical side, I'm running out of overtime money. The city has a major increase in TB cases, requiring the nurses to have to go out on overtime to distribute medication to people, and we've seen that budget more than quadruple in the past 6 months, so that's eaten into some of my inspectors' overtime, so we haven't done the weekend walk-arounds.
Just a follow-up, so in emergency situations, by emergency I mean someone, say there was a potential abuse of opening hours or businesses working, out in the middle of the street, like sometimes happens, but only happens on Saturday or Sunday when no one's around, as you well know. Would you be able to handle that, with this, if we needed to do something like that?
Yes, I mean, the weekend walk-around program that we did required about $20,000 worth of overtime. The on-call overtime that we usually generally use for fires or collapses is probably not even a quarter of that. So we also hired clerical people too. We were running 2 clerical people short, and we used overtime there. So my intention here is there'll be 0 clerical overtime, and this will be inspectors overtime. By putting on, if you look into my budget, you'll also see another part-time nurse. So the intent is to use that nurse to eliminate a lot of the current overtime we have in the nursing side. So I will be able to address things, probably not, to the extent with the weekend walkabouts. And if I could seek an increase, if things got better and the government gave us the city more money, I would look to increase that overtime budget by anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000, because that's about all it would take to accomplish what you're discussing. But we will be able to respond if somebody calls and says of a situation. We will send somebody out in the house. I'll find the money somewhere else if I need to.
Thanks. Thank you.
Council Trahan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, I think we ask you this every year. On the line item for road, you requested $30,000, and then the mayor sent it back, putting in the line item budget $20,000. Now, do you talk to her about that? Do you call her and tell her that we need the $30,000, or do you just accept that? How's that go?
I put that number in this year at $20,000. I mean, keep in mind that's an expense, and that represents the exterminator and it represents the traps that we buy. It doesn't represent manpower. We put an additional health inspector on, so that gives us more flexibility to keep people in the field actually more often than we did before. We've also increased the frequency of the exterminator going out by changing the methods. Prior to 6 months ago, the exterminator and the inspector would go out at once. Now the inspector just keeps a list and hands the exterminator a list, so the inspector can cover more properties and the exterminator follows behind and does what he needs to do. Every year we look at the amount of money that we have, and we don't do baiting a lot in the wintertime. And we struggle just because to follow the program as it's been written, if we're going to go on somebody's property, they have to sign a waiver. We're going to look to canvass the whole neighborhood. 20,000 in rodent traps and poison is more than enough, I think, for what we can do. Anything beyond that, I think, would be, you need an equivalent manpower. But we're putting one more person on to handle this too. So I think we will be okay in that respect. I do.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? Council Cahill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. Dunn. Page 33, there's a couple of line items there relative to classical monitoring and classical interim repairs, H201S, H202S. It looks as though, are we funding roughly $200,000 for monitoring and interim repairs? Did we keep that line item open just in case? Unless I'm reading this incorrectly, it doesn't look like we expended any of that money, or because it was covered elsewhere.
The money is here, and we will expend it. We didn't expend it all there last year, but we had it funded. Some of it is being expended as we speak. $50,000 is pretty much what it costs us yearly to monitor the air quality testing, the settlement survey, and the structural above ceiling and below ceiling inspections. The $150,000 is a fair number in that it comes up and down, but we do interim repairs. I think the last one we did was probably 70,000. The one before that was 225 or 250. So we will expend that money fully at Classical this year. There's no question.
And above that, 8200S capital repairs, I'm assuming the S is schools?
Yes, sir.
So you have $750,000 there for capital improvements, for capital repairs, and we also have $750,000 in another line item on page. The next page, 33. Oh wait, no, 32. Line item 4399S. Miscellaneous repair, maintenance of schools.
Yes.
So is that roughly 1.5 million towards school buildings and maintenance and repair this year?
Yes, sir. I mean, some of the 4399S projects are all funded at a level of less than $150,000. However, some of our projects have cost more than that. When we do a boiler at school, it's more often it costs more than $150,000. So 8,200 is where we will go and do a project like I mentioned before. The Cobbett School is going to be $200,000 this year. So those are at 150, and the 8,200 generally represents projects greater than 150.
And all the projects that you mentioned, were they funded in our previous FY13 budget? Or, because you had mentioned the roofs and the windows and the sills and such, has that already been funded, or is that going to be coming out of FY14 budget?
The projects I mentioned are coming out of the 14 budget, with the exception of Bennett Street, which was started using this year's fiscal money and will bridge 2 fiscal years because of the cost.
Is any of that money reimbursable from SBA?
No. The only statement of interest that we have, our primary is Marshall. And the only money that's being reimbursed that's not from Marshall is the Breed Accelerated Repair Project and the LVTI Accelerated Repair Projects. There's approximately $7 million, $6.9 million of which we're receiving 80% reimbursement for those two, so the LVTI roof and then the windows at Breed.
Do you know roughly in FY13 how much we spent on capital improvements to schools specifically?
Yes, in addition to the 750, mid-year there was a transfer of 1.6 million. So it was a 1.4 and a 1.6. So we spent a little bit more than $3 million for appropriations in addition to the $7 million that we're spending through the MSBA Accelerated Repair Project. So last year we're looking at $3 million worth of repairs to the schools. If we look at the 2 MSBA projects in this year's budget, we're looking at $8.4 million plus there's a little more than $3 million in energy efficiency improvements. So this year alone, we're looking at $11.5 to $12 million worth of improvements to the Lynn public school buildings.
That includes the possible stuff.
Generally speaking, it would, yes. Like the monitoring really isn't an improvement. It's just we're monitoring it. I mean, checking.
Is that moving utilities around anymore?
Oh no, we are. We'll be going in to remodel an electrical room where the walls right now, the boxes are hung on the masonry walls, but the walls are leaning out. And we're going to be tearing the walls down from 12 feet and rebuilding them because any more, they might, in a few more years go over. And we'll also be doing a lot of masonry repairs. The final plans are coming out from the engineer, the draft. It's probably in the tune of 175 to 200 in that ballpark. Part of it will be paid for through other line items, but of bond beams, doors, resetting door frames, things of that nature.
You have technically the organization plan. Is that plan envisioned in this budget? And would it impact this budget either negatively or positively?
The reorganization plan, since it hasn't been approved, is not included within this budget. Right now, I'm in the process of impact bargaining the changes that were represented by that plan with the unions. Upon completion of that, I would, petition the council to continue conversations on it And if the conclusion was came and the council approved it, it would still take a home rule petition. So, given the process, if everything went well, the best we would be looking at is the next fiscal year. However, so there would be no impact on this budget. Going forward, the positions that we're proposing are to be filled through attrition based on pending retirements. So there would be a negligible impact on the budget because we'd be taking away and then adding. But there is one, the increases that I did note though previously in this budget are in the plan, but they were previously negotiated with guard unions and approved by the mayor, which would be sanitarian, and then the part-time nurse, and then the 2 part-time inspectors.
So are you retiring this year?
Yes.
Any other questions? Councilor Net.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner Donovan, how are you?
Good, sir. Yourself?
Doing good, thank you. Good to see you. I see this line item 3000S, the outside professional, commission general. Last year we spent 1,050, and this year you're not asking for it, and why did you ask for it, and what is basically this? Page 31.
That's outside professionals would generally be engineers, architects, etc. We move spending on those line items to the 2412. Yes, and we now lump outside professionals such as engineers with contractors. Any outside contractor, it just comes from the same account because it's easier to keep track of based upon the varied spending. The projects come and go, and the spending is not consistent depending on the needs.
I see. So you might not need it this year, right? That's why you're not asking for it.
Yes, sir. Well, if you look at 2412S, you'll see that there was an increase on that account. There was a decrease in some other accounts, but there was an increase in that account to reflect repairs and design of repairs that are required within the schools. That account went from I believe it's at 655,000. Yes.
So, okay, if we need it, so how are we going to pass more money if this we're going to get it from? So we can.
Oh, I mean, the $1,000 generally did not represent truly what we were spending.
Okay.
Because on any given project, on design fee, you're looking between 4 and 8% of the project itself. So $1,000 would not take you to a very large project.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Seer.
Mr. President, just going back to the repairs and costs, are we using money out of this budget to do the repairs? Because I was always under the impression that we had a settlement for the companies that did the engineering and the construction work, to go back and repair some of the things that you talked about, the wall and the door frames and things like that.
We
Did
did.
we allocate that money?
Yes, we have, and we have been. That settlement pretty much has been expended. There was $9 million, I want to say $8 and change million from the attorneys. The city floated a bond back in 2005. Since that time, we've put over $14 million into the school. We've far exceeded the money that we received from the settlement with the engineers. No, $25 million was the expected, but the anticipated cost to make full repairs. We've fully repaired about 40% of the school. We've expended a little over $14 million. And right now, we're only making repairs as needed.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Donovan. I see the mayor's joining us, so we'll have the mayor's department.
Mr. President, I'm running between meetings tonight.
Our pleasure.
So, councilors? Do you want me to do about 3.5% this year. And although it's impossible to cut every budget exactly 3.5%, I wanted to at least lead by example and do that with the line items that had been in my budget last year. So you will see that last year I had $640,000, a little more than that in my budget. This year it's down to $619. It had actually been cut down to $604. And then on the last go-round of the budget, I added that line item 7512 for the inauguration, because historically the mayor's office pays for all of the costs of the inauguration, the school committee, the city council, and the mayor. And this is it will be after an election, so FY14 is going to contain an inauguration as well. And whatever money doesn't come out of that goes back into the general fund. So my actual budget is down a little bit over 4%. If you want me to go line by line, I can do that, or if you have any questions, I can answer any of those that you might have.
Any questions for her honor the mayor?
Looks good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you all.
Dr. Latham, school department.
Evening, councils. We have a little different situation in the school department where we rely very heavily on state Chapter 70 funds, and they are related to the number of students we have in the district. From October 1st, 2011 to October 1st, 2012, that's this year, we saw an increase of 502 students in the school department. Therefore, there was a considerable increase in our Chapter 70 funding, which goes to the mayor, and the mayor did increase our budget because of that increase. We also, because of those increased students, we are seeing serious overcrowding in 3 of our elementary schools, Brickett, Ford, and Tracy, but with the money from the additional funding has allowed us to add an early childhood center, which is going to be in the space that we are vacating in the school administration building. So we will be moving to Bennett Street, and there will be a kindergarten center taking up residence where we are now. So the Bennett Street project Mr. Donovan was speaking of earlier. We saw a large reduction in retirement costs. We are retiring quite a few people and are hiring younger teachers, which of course saves us quite a bit of money. And we also are seeing additional costs associated with buyback for sick leave, accumulated, a loss of costs, accumulated prior to 1987. So in our contract, if you accumulated sick leave prior to 1987, you could buy it back, but most of those folks have now retired. We've added funding to support school safety and security updates and additions to outfit the 10 remaining schools with cameras. And we're also working on interior, exterior door repairs and replacements. We've increased our technology line to account for Wi-Fi for the schools, new servers, and technology setups. We've added and consolidated in a number of places where we had translation services. We now have one translation line. It's in the parent information section, and it is right now approximately $90,000. It may need to be increased. We have put in a small amount for our Washington STEM school. That's our elementary school for a STEM lab. Some small amounts for a gifted and talented program to come back to, at least a pilot to come back to the elementary schools. We're going to support national board certification for our teachers, support teachers who want to go through that. There are small amounts for that. Expanding out, we are expanding programs in plumbing and early childhood at Tech. All of our previously existing programs are fully funded, and we have gotten notice that Connery and Harrington, our 2 level 4 schools, have been given an additional, their grants again this year, and that for each of those schools is approximately $400,000, so that helps considerably. We have built into the budget approximately seven to be determined TBDs, as we call them. Those are for teachers, a few sped paras, which we expect, and that's a fluid situation during the year. And we're seeing some need now that we hadn't seen before for one-on-one nurses for children who are medically fragile and who do need one-on-one nurses, and there are a couple of those that are allowed for but not yet filled in the budget. Our budget is, oddly enough, a fluid document. As you know, the state has yet to finalize its budget, so we depend greatly on that. Also, we are told that our these are our federal Title I, Title II, Title III grants. Title I follows low-income students. Title II is for educator quality. Title III is for English language learners. Those grants have yet to be finalized. They are entitlement grants. We have to apply for them, but it's a guarantee that we will get them. We are told that they're being reduced approximately 10%, which for Title I alone, that's about $5.6 million, so we will see a reduction of about $500,000 or more dollars. We have budgeted for that. If they reduce it any less, we're in better shape. We also expect the circuit breaker. The circuit breaker is funding for outside students with special needs who require outside placements. Anything over $35,000 for an outside placement. For example, if one placement is $100,000, the first $35,000 is our responsibility. The next $65,000 would be reimbursable by approximately, well, the law says 75%. We haven't seen the full 75% in a few years. We have budgeted for 70 and are hoping for 75, so that may free up a little bit more money as well. Our SPED budget, our outside placements this year have increased for approximately 160 students. The outside placement budget plus transportation is over $11 million right now. And we've also seen some ELL support that we need to add into the schools, as well as a newcomer program, as you know. Homeless transportation costs. These costs happen when we have a student who is homeless and is moved by the state to, let's say, a residence or a motel in Danvers. When that happens, then we cost share the transportation budget to take that student from Danvers back to Lynn to go to school. So Danvers has to kick in as well as we kick in. That is a mandate. We expect some money back from that. If it does come back, it will go to the city's general fund, not to us. So that may be something positive for the mayor to think about, but we haven't seen that money ever, so we're hoping for that. But basically, that's the budget. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Latham?
Are you happy with your budget?
I am. I think that we have done a lot. I'm hoping for a few more dollars. I'd like to do a few more things, but yes, all of our programs are being funded. You know, we have some great vocal and musical and fine arts programs, as well as now we're starting some really serious STEM programs from elementary on up, and we are able to fund it all. And some fabulous special needs programs as well.
Any additional council comment?
Every year I ask you the same thing, for update on the machine shopping program.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, for people that don't know, the superintendent has taken a real leadership role at Lynn Tech, opening up the school at night for recreational activities and education. And I think it's going to be a success even more down the road. And I just thank you for that.
My pleasure. It really is good. I'm hoping to expand that. We already have the person who's in charge is working on the next round. So in fact, we expect to add machine shop as Dr. Harris has worked on, along with the machine shop instructor, so we're going to start some use of the equipment in the night school as well.
That's true.
Yeah, so that should start in September, October, when we get that going. Thank you for serving on the board that helped us out there. So the machine shop is good, along with the engineering program. We have a full-time instructor, and so a lot of interest in that.
We start up in September.
Yes, the instructor is there now full-time.
I thought it was like a STEM program,
Yeah,
every year, maybe.
There's an engineering program. We have a pre-engineering program at Tech, which really feeds into machining as well as graphic design. And yeah, we've ordered a number for Tech, more simulators that they use in the machine shop, as well as CNC equipment. So that program is really looking good.
Council Cahill.
Thanks, Mr. President. Hello. How is the city doing on our obligation to the smart How have we done last year, and how are we doing this year?
What happens is the Chapter 70 funds come, right now they're not finalized, but we are given a Chapter 70 amount, the City of Lynn, from the state. From that, the city is allowed to take in-kind out, so insurance, whatever it costs to keep us going, and then delivers to us the rest. The state requires the city to meet a net school spending amount. Until December, when the state figures out exactly the costs that should have been done. If you remember, last December, we were $1.6 million under, the city was $1.6 million under net school spending, and the mayor at that time made it up. So Mr. Donovan was able to do a number of projects for the schools. So the mayor tries, we try and give her some advice as to where we think, you know, the amount they should give us, but it really is a big guess until they figure it all out in December. So we can estimate it pretty well. I'm not exactly sure right now. We may be a little bit low, we may be right there. I'm not sure, there's no definite. Again, the Chapter 70 amount from the state has yet to be finalized.
So then it comes out, there's essentially a floor that the city has to meet.
Yes,
We're not exceeding that. We have not exceeded that.
that's correct.
Last 10 years,
Um,
how have we done with either exceeding or meeting?
At one point, a number of years ago, the city was $9 million over. That was quite a few years ago. I couldn't tell you exactly how many years ago. For the last maybe 5 or 6 years, we are either even or, I think 2 years ago, 800,000 under, 1.6 under this year, but was made up, so. Whatever we are under, the city is under, has to be added to the next year's Chapter 70 allotment and net school spending amounts. So if the net school spending number is, let's say, 150 million, and this year we're under 2, then next year it's whatever it goes up to, and then it's added. Now I expect our Chapter 70 money for next year, we are already up this year, another 170 students. So the Chapter 70 money to the City of Lynn next year will also go up. And so the net school spending requirements by the city will go up accordingly.
So it will go up because we have an increase in student population. However, if we shortchange it this year, we have to make it up all next year.
That's correct.
So you can do almost a double hit. You have it.
That's possible.
And how do we, I know you said you guess, but how do we ensure that we prevent that? I guess to say is, why wouldn't we just overfund it this year, be over-aggressive, and if need be, at least next year we're not seeing a wider gap? Explain to me.
Well, I think that it's possibly, I'm just looking at both sides now. You like to at least be on it. I think that the city has lost funding. The money from the state to the city has gone down, but the Chapter 70 funds have gone up. So there's a matter of, you know, you can overdo to a certain extent, but then, you know, you have to reach a balance. And I think the net school spending number is a pretty good balance, but it's a guess.
What happens, what's the punishment, I guess, from the state if we chronically underfund? It's kind of like a Ponzi scheme.
The city has to stay within 5% of the net schools funding number. As I understand it, if we drop below the 5%, so let's say we are 8% under net school spending, then not only is the amount added to next year's net school spending number, which of course will go up, but it is also the city is penalized and the amount is subtracted from the city's amount. So you get hit twice.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Net.
Thank you, Mr. President. Captain Nathan, it's good to see you. I tried to find out how many teachers have been here, so.
About 1,000.
5,000?
About 1,000, yes.
So,
Approximately.
is that enough? It's not enough, right?
It's never enough, but but we can make it work. What we do write in some to be determined, some TBDs. We have 7 of them. I hope it's enough. We have compliance issues with special education and English language learner support that we have to give. So when we evaluate what we start off with in September, we may need to add teachers and that kind of support. We also have some hotspots that continue. We have some very, very large elementary schools. If we have a large influx of students in the upper grades that we didn't count on, we'll have to split classes there, so we need to add teachers too. So right now, though, our elementary levels, and you'll see that there are some pages in there that tell you exactly how many students we project in every single elementary classroom in the city, and we are holding at 28, so there are, right now, no class is over 28. If they go over, we'll need to split. So,
what area do you need most now for teachers? Bilinguals or mainstream classes? Or what?
Right now, we are fully staffed, so I expect we are going to need some bilingual teachers. As you know, we have a very large newcomer program this year.
Yes.
We have as many as, I believe, 90 students, older students, who are coming new to the city, some of whom have never been to school a day in their lives, and we may need to add some staff. We also, because of our special education programs, and we have some great ones, a lot of people move into the city, and it appears to me from what I see that generally people are moving into the city.
That's great.
They're sending their kids to the public schools, which is a good thing.
Yes, it is. And what school do you think need most really for bilinguals?
Conway, probably, well, right now over 80% English language learners. Harrington, pretty much the schools that are in multiple unit housing areas and areas pretty close to downtown.
I see.
Those are that have your Cobbett is also a lot of English language learners there.
I thought you do a great job. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Mrs. Latham, you're doing a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you folks, thank you.
Fire Department Chief Patone.
Page 51.
Councilors? There are some parallels to our budget compared with the police department in that the budget that we presented was about $400,000 more than is presented tonight.
We have, in the coming year, less retirees, which was a huge hit this year. Retirees, we had 13, took up a lot of their contractual payments, which was a large amount of money off our payroll. And we don't anticipate to have such a large contingent retire this year or the coming years. Beyond that, I don't anticipate more than 5 or 6 maybe this year, and that number will probably be cut in half the following year, barring any unforeseen circumstances. So the number is smaller, but we can get creative and fill the gaps that had to be cut. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions?
How do you like your new position?
Sometimes change is good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. You're all set. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.